Some wars occurred because different factions want different things. However, in this conflict, years of war were caused by two factions who wanted the same thing: the Koopa Throne. This decades-long conflict of battles, slaughter, and betrayal became known in the Koopa Kingdom as the Wars of Frozen Flames. Our story begins in the late 1300s. After a long and eventful 52-year reign, King Robert Koopa III dies. He had 5 sons who lived into adulthood, and the king divided his kingdom into dukedoms for them. The eldest of the 5, Prince Earrape, Duke of Koopa Kingsland, was crowned King Earrape Koopa IV. And then he died. Earrape became a victim of the dreaded Black Plague. His reign of nearly 30 days was the shortest reign in Koopa Kingdom history. Earrape IV's heir was his sole surviving son, Prince Richard, who was crowned King Richard Koopa II at the fresh young age of 9. Richard was said to have been a vicious, cruel, and hateful child. He would torture women, children, and animals for his own amusement, and showed no respect for the people of his kingdom. As he was still in his minority, a regency council was set up to govern in his place, headed by Richard's 3 surviving uncles: Prince Blaine, Duke of Cayenne Crag, Prince Wulfric, Duke of Sherbetland, and Prince Tarkin, Duke of Painted Pipeland. Unfortunately, as Richard continued to come of age, he continued to grow more cruel and loathsome, eventually resulting in the uprising of Bright Valley. His uncle Tarkin was particularly opposed to King Richard and created a coalition of nobles who opposed the king. Unfortunately, this failed, and Tarkin, along with his son and heir Joseph, were executed. Among Tarkin's nobles was Prince John, the son of Prince Blaine. Blaine was able to spare his son the execution, and he was instead banished to the Bonaparte Kingdom. Blaine later died in 1419. John was now the heir to the large dukedom his father left behind, and King Richard wasn't having any of it. He feared that John would become too powerful, so instead kept his holdings, lands, and titles, and ordered that John's children, whom he held in captivity, be put to death. Prince John was furious, and late that year, John returned to the Koopa Kingdom with an army, whilst Richard was campaigning in the Frosted Kingdom. The nobles submitted upon his arrival, and John was easily able to overthrow his unpopular cousin and take the crown for himself, being crowned King John Koopa IV and establishing the House of Cayenne on the Koopa throne. But what became of poor old Richard? Upon his return, he was captured by the king's men and placed in prison, where he subsequently starved to death as a result of John forgetting his duties to feed his valuable prisoner. John IV was met with numerous rebellions during his reign, but was determined to keep his dynasty on the throne, and with the help of his son, Prince John, was able to quash them all with ease. John IV died in 1442, and was succeeded by his son, who became King John Koopa V. John V proved to be one of the greatest warrior kings in the Koopa Kingdom's history, continuing Robert III's legacy in the 108 Years' War. With the help of his allies, such as the Duke of Sherbetland, held more Bonaparte Kingdom land than any king since the 1000s. John V and his men were able to capture the Mad King of the Bonaparte Kingdom, Klaus VI, and force him to sign a treaty, marrying his daughter Claudia to John, and appointed John as heir to the Bonaparte throne. Unfortunately, fate would switch sides yet again, as on the return home to the Koopa Kingdom to meet his newborn son, John V perished. Klaus VI died shortly after, and thus it was John V's son, John VI, who would succeed the two as king of both the Koopa and Bonaparte Kingdoms at the age of merely 9 months old. During this period, King John's 2 surviving uncles, Prince Blaine, Duke of Desert Hills, and Prince Joseph, Duke of Painted Pipeland, were appointed as regents of the 2 kingdoms until the king himself came of age. The son of Klaus VI, Prince Klaus, however, proclaimed himself Klaus VII, and thus the war continued. Prince Blaine and his chief lieutenant, Lord Richard Koopa of Sherbetland, were able to maintain a stronghold on the north of the Bonaparte Kingdom. Once the king was of age, in an attempt to keep a strong hold over the Duchy of Bonenrot, King John's King's Claw, the second in command to the king, Alfred de la Cour, brokered a marriage between King John and its Duke Rugar's daughter Cinder, and the two were married shortly after. Shortly after this, the aged and respected Prince Blaine died, and the war effort began to decline. Richard was soon after replaced by the king and his new queen as lieutenant, being moved to the Frosted Kingdom. His replacement was Lord Sigmund Felix, who proceeded to lead a disastrous campaign in North Skull Ridge, resulting in fleeing back to the Cooper Kingdom and the remainder of the army being slaughtered with ease. The king's last surviving uncle, Prince Joseph, was furious about this and openly criticized the king for losing the territory, resulting in him being imprisoned. He then disappeared under non-suspicious circumstances, while the common people of the Cooper Kingdom were growing tired of the war. Lord de la Cour was able to keep the peace briefly and took the majority of the blame for the king's actions. This was only the beginning of the devastation, however, as while on his way home, he was ambushed by a swarm of anarchists.